Our sense of smell gives us such intense memories. The fresh scent of flowers at a botanic garden, the sea breeze on a perfect beach day. Have you ever had a childhood memory suddenly emerge when you catch a whiff of a particular fragrance? If you have, your experience was highlighted by your smell memory. And while our memory of smell tends to record only the extreme good and bad smells, there are animals living around us that rely on their sense of smell as their primary way of seeing the world. Join me for this episode of Off the Trail and let your nose lead the way. A dog's sense of smell is said to be 1,000 times more sensitive than ours. In fact, inside that nose are 220 million olfactory receptors, while we only have about 5 million. The percentage of their brain that's dedicated to processing those smells is 40 times larger than our own. I wanted to put their sense of smell to the test. And for that, we're gonna take a look at some highly trained and specialized dogs that use their sense of smell to keep you and I safe every day. Lieutenant Lachlan and his canine Fuzz have been fighting crime for a multitude of years. These police dogs are trained to specifically sniff either drugs or explosives in areas such as airports and public venues.
We have a total of 8 dogs in the canine unit, and all of the dogs are trained in various aspects of locating people, and then they have specialties, whether it's locating explosives or narcotics.
Wow, what's your dog, what's Fuzz trained to do?
He's trained in explosives. That's his specialty, in addition to finding people.
Now I heard you prepared a little demonstration for us here.
Yes, we have 2 of the canine teams that are here. We have Officer Jeff Shake and his dog are trained in narcotics detection, and then Officer Chris Peters and his canine are trained in explosives detection.
How do you train these dogs to smell these smells? Or
basically, we train using the real-life substance. Whether if we train the dogs for narcotics, we actually use narcotics. We put it out and we imprint that odor on the dog. So the dog smells it. The dog's going to memorize that, and then we train the dog to have an alert when he comes across that odor. Same thing with explosives. We actually use real explosives. There are various components to all explosives. We will train on those components, and then that goes in the memory bank for the dog. Once you imprint a dog on an odor, he memorizes that, and then we use that later on to find something, whether it's finding illicit narcotics or an explosives. Police Officer Jeff Shake and his canine partner Jake. They are going to conduct a search of this vehicle. You will see how the canine is going to alert if he finds anything.
If he finds anything. And so he starts on this side of the car and he works around. So does that mean it's looking like there's an interest here?
Right, the dog has an interest, and he's letting the handler know that he's discovering one of the odors that he was trained to find.
How extraordinary is a dog's sense of smell? Are they smelling stuff that like you and I could smell?
They can detect odors that are beyond our capabilities, whether it's a specific odor of a narcotic or even something as simple as proceeds from a burglary. If they're looking for, they could find something as simple as a credit card, or when they're tracking an individual, and that's what he's honing in on, and he's going to follow that.
Wow, so you're saying there's enough scent just by stepping on the ground and just your normal footsteps,
yes,
that the dog can actually follow that,
yes,
that scent trail.
That's what we use when we're tracking, whether it's somebody that's lost that we're looking for, or it's a suspect in a crime. The dog is helping us as a locating tool.
That's amazing. And do they have to smell something from that person before they can follow them? Or?
No, what we're going on in a situation like that is the last location where the missing person or the subject was.
So my understanding is that your dogs, you're using their heightened sense of smell and their training to keep us all safe?
Primarily, the explosive detection dogs are used for dignitary sweeps, whether it's visiting heads of states from other countries are visiting, whether it's a presidential candidate. But then we will also secure and sweep areas where there's going to be large gatherings of the public, whether it's Belmont Stakes, Long Island Marathon. We work hand in hand with other agencies, and we clear the area just so we know it's safe and secure for the public to be there.
What we just saw was an amazing demonstration of a canine's sense of smell. He was looking for an explosive somewhere in here.
Correct.
And came right through here, and there was no sort of visual cue that anything would be behind it, but he was able to detect that explosive, and it was inside this machine right here and hidden.
Correct.
Right down there. That is a real true test of their sense of smell.
Yes, it is.
And I hear too that this is really quite a personal commitment for you and your fellow canine unit officers to accept one of these working dogs.
Right. When you sign up to work in the canine unit, it is a big commitment, because now you're going to be with that dog 24/7. When you come to work, you're training with that dog. You're going to go through roughly 6 months of training to get that dog up and running where he's now working on the street with you. So it is a big commitment. As long as they stay healthy, we'll work a dog until he's about 9 years old. When it comes time for that dog to retire, and we're going to put a new dog in service, that handler usually adopts that dog, and then he becomes the family pet. And then if they choose to work another dog, we'll train another dog.
While these police dogs are amazing, they aren't the only ones with a strong sense of smell. We're also going to talk about a close cousin of the dog, an animal that's recently made a big comeback here in the town of North Hempstead, the fox. Foxes rely on their keen sense of smell for hunting even the smallest prey. Let's take a closer look at one of these fascinating creatures.
So Takapasha Museum and Nature Preserve is home to a wide variety of animals, a lot of which are here. You can find them on Long Island. Maybe they were taken from the wild because they were injured or sick and needed rehabilitation. A lot of the other animals here at the preserve are abandoned exotic pets.
And in particular, we've been in search of foxes, and I hear that you have some foxes here.
Oh yeah, we have a little number of foxes. Yeah, we've got all extremes: cold, hot climate, and our local red foxes from.
Oh, you have
can
red
find
foxes
them, yeah, right here on
Nice.
Long Island.
And what else? You said cold?
Yep, we have an Arctic fox. His name is Ghost, and then we have a fennec fox, which is found in northern Africa. Her name is Sandy.
Yeah, that's a desert dweller. So
Oh,
you have
yeah.
a little bit of everything here.
A little bit of everything. Yep, all the extremes.
Excellent. So tell me a little bit about these foxes. Do they all kind of share a commonality between them all?
Well, they absolutely do. All foxes, they are part of the canine family. Their behaviors are a lot different than other canines like wolves, coyotes, and dogs. But arguably, they all have pretty much the same acute senses that they would use to hunt or find food, like their sense of smell, hearing, even eyesight's pretty good. They are nocturnal animals. In the world, I mean, foxes, they can be found pretty much anywhere. They're very adaptable animals. They are very territorial. These guys are going to use that sense of smell to communicate with one another with scent glands and stuff like that. They will mark territories, trees, food caches. And that is just one great way that they can communicate with another. They do have a musk gland. It's at the base of their tail, and they'll rub. It's a very smelly little spot on their tail. But like I said, yeah, they will use that. They mark their territory. They also like the smell of their own urine, feces. They will sometimes preserve a little spot, where they like to sleep with urine and feces, and sometimes lay in it. It's kind of gross.
Wow.
Beautiful creatures, but stinky. Absolutely. All right. Hey guys, I'm gonna hide some treats for you. So we're gonna see if these little mice will be easily found by our red foxes. They're already sniffing around. So foxes, these red foxes, they have an acute sense of smell. Arguably, their sense of smell is as good as domestic dogs, with the exception of specialized breeds of dogs. They more heavily rely on their sense of hearing to hunt for prey, but that sense of smell is so good that they can actually find food that has been buried up to 4 inches underground. Ghost the Arctic fox is a little less than 2 years old now, so he still has this very puppy fox kit-like personality. Ghost was rescued from a fur farm out west. They also bred these foxes for pets, and he was the only male in his litter. Now, male foxes can be extraterritorial, so not many people wanted a male Arctic fox. All his sisters went to a zoo, and then we got a phone call saying that there's this little white Arctic fox that needed a home, so we took him in. We had enough space here at the museum.
Wow.
And Arctic foxes, yeah, they have just as good a sense of smell as red foxes. Decent hearing as well. Their ears are a little bit shorter than red foxes, and that's because the harsh, cold, climate these guys come from. They need to make sure that they don't get their ears frostbitten, so they have the shorter ears. These guys are one of the only animals that can successfully steal food from a polar bear, and they can withstand temperatures as low as -50 degrees Celsius.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah.
That's intense.
So this is Sandy, the fennec fox. Those bat-like ears, they need to be so large on the fennec fox because they do live in a very harsh climate. The Sahara Desert is a very hot, place. So those ears actually are covered in tiny little veins and capillaries that radiate excess body heat to keep her nice and cool.
Can I touch her?
Absolutely, yeah, she's really sweet. You could pet her.
Oh, she's
You'll
so
see she has
soft.
very soft fur.
Now, is this fur, is it so soft like that to help shed sand or anything like that?
Now it's funny, people wonder, well, if the Sahara Desert is a very hot, place to be for an animal, it's a harsh environment, why would they have so much fur? Well, believe it or not, the Sahara Desert, as nighttime falls, the temperature drops dramatically, and these animals know that it's actually probably easier for them to go around finding food during the nighttime, right, when it's, the
Cooler.
intense, sun is not there, it is cooler. This nice fur coat of hers is going to keep her warm at night. The fur actually comes all the way down to their feet, and it covers their pads, so that way they don't get burned on the hot sand as well.
That's great. So we've seen a huge number of adaptations now, especially from the two extremes on the planet, the Arctic,
Right.
with the small ears, all the way to the desert with these large ears. It's really impressive how these animals have just radiated out into all environments around the planet.
Absolutely. It's easy to see why foxes are the most widely distributed carnivores throughout the planet.
These foxes have recently been increasing in number in the town of North Hempstead. Let's take a look at why these amazing creatures have been making a local comeback. Town of North Hempstead Supervisor Judi Bosworth has decided to meet me at the Hempstead Harbor Trail line to talk about the re-emerging local fox population.
There actually has been a resurgence of foxes in North Hempstead. We've had reports of them being seen in Great Neck and Kings Point, in Port Washington North, in terms of community areas, and we've actually seen them in our parks as well. We saw them at Clark Botanic Gardens, at actually the Solid Waste Management Agency. We've seen foxes there as well as at Harbor Links.
Well, I think that there might be a couple of reasons why people are seeing more foxes in this resurgence. One is that foxes, like all the dogs, the coyotes and the wolves and stuff, they're very adaptive. And so as they're approaching society and living in urban areas, they start becoming more and more habituated around people and homes. So at first they kind of, hide in the shadows and dodge about, but then as the next generation and the next generation become a little bit more comfortable around people, then they start becoming a little bit more bold and being even out in the daytime and people seeing them. People that keep their cats outdoors or feed their animals outdoors, that also brings them closer in to people's homes.
So if people see, foxes, should they not feed them? Should they, what should they do? Should they call somebody?
One thing that I'm very concerned about is people feeding wildlife. And that just always creates an unsafe condition. In national parks, always tell you don't feed the wildlife. And that's a really good policy even here in our local urban parks, because whenever wildlife get so comfortable that they'll come up to you, then that can really create a dangerous situation, because we have to keep in mind that these are wild animals. If the fox or any wildlife is showing strange behavior like drooling or like walking like it's drunk or something like that, that's an indication that the animal is sick and needs, rehabilitation or help in some way like that.
So, we're talking about wildlife that we're seeing unexpectedly. In the town of North Hempstead, we've made a great effort to make our town more dog-friendly. And in fact, we have 3 parks where we've initiated allowing dogs in parks on leashes. Are there any suggestions that you have for people if they're walking with their pets and they should encounter wildlife such as a fox?
It is important that people keep their dogs on leash like that. For instance, dogs in particular are going to be very, smell-driven to sniff out other dogs, and including foxes. And keeping your dogs on leash is important, because if they were to somehow flush out a fox and chase it and corner it, it could be dangerous for your dog and also for the fox itself.
It's important to keep dogs leashed when taking them into parks or nature trails, so they don't encounter any unexpected wildlife. Interestingly enough, I've seen more foxes in the wild when my dogs are with me than without. Maybe they sense the relatedness in our best friend, the dog. Foxes have used their sense of smell for millions of years, and it's helped them conquer all habitats spanning across the Americas, Eurasia, and Africa before being nearly wiped out 3 million years ago. Since that time, the red fox has re-established its global existence, led by its crafty sense of smell. As you can see here in this fox skull, it has that characteristic long snout, which gave rise then to the coyotes, which you can see here, and eventually the best of all the pack hunters, the wolf. Dogs evolved from wolves at a surprising point in human civilization, the dawn of agriculture. When humans started growing crops and settling down onto farms, it gave us a chance to create a surplus of food. We could then store this excess food and save it for later, trade it, or use it to make friends with wolves. Within a few generations, you would have something much like a domestic dog, capable of living full-time in the village, helping to keep an eye on the livestock, and warning humans of approaching danger. It's because of these reasons that humans were so eager to foster a lasting relationship with dogs, which continues even to this day as humans' best friend.
We've looked at 2 creatures that use their sense of smell to navigate the world around them, the dog and the fox. If you'd like to learn more about these creatures or see more episodes of Off the Trail, please go to mynhtv.com or keep in touch with me at yc2n.com. I'm Ranger Powers, and until next time, I'll see you off the trail.